Hello and welcome. This is going to be a new video series on magical evocation. This is going to be part 1, which is going to be spirit classes and spirit types. I'm not going to be going all in on these. You're probably going to want to do your own research on these. I'm going to give a couple disclaimers before we start. I am a Western ceremonialist magician with a background in Golden Dawn style magic. Solitary Golden Dawn style magic to be specific. I do not participate in any lodge work. I am completely solitary. I have done a little bit of group work in the past, but most of my magic is solitary. A couple of terms before we get into the real meat and potatoes of this video. 2 words that I want to define real quick. Evocation and invocation. I know there's some debate among some circles that invocation and evocation are the same. For the sake of this video, I'm going to say that they're not the same, just because this is how I commonly use it, so I just want to use the definition I'm using and tell you guys so that you're not confused when I say invoke and evoke. Okay? Cool. Evocation is to call forth. You are calling a spirit that is external to you, and you are summoning it, trying to get it to go into a state where you can converse with it in a manner that you can either make a deal with it, get it to do something for you, or it can give you information and teach you something. Commonly, this will be an angel, demon, or planetary spirit, or an elemental. Doesn't really matter. But invocation is similar. Invocations are prayers, and usually they mechanically call an energy into your space. So, if I wanted to evoke an entity, and that entity was, say, solar. Let's say it's solar. I would want to do a planetary invocation of the sun to make my space more solar, and I'd want to be burning solar correspondent herbs and incenses, like frankincense, cinnamon, that kind of thing. Warming incenses. And then I would want to do my evocation to actually call forth the spirit. Because now I have made the room much more amicable to the spirit, and it's just a much more pleasant environment for it to be in. Because when you're calling a spirit, if it's in a place where it wants to be, it is more likely to work with you. And you are more likely to get clearer communication. There's other things later on that we'll talk about in future videos about what will improve your communication rate and what communication rate even means, actually. But for the moment, just know that we're going to be doing evocations to call forth spirits and invocations to call energies into our space. The last definition I want to give is hierarchies. Now, hierarchies are the hierarchies of the spirits. We don't know if these are 100%, but these are close enough to what we're going to be using, and they seem to work, so we're going to be using them. Now, hierarchies are what spirits report to what other spirits. Effectively, it's the chain of command. So, for a really simple example, let's take the Archangel of the planet. So, the Archangel of the planet is actually in the middle of the hierarchy. It is below the Archangel of the Sphere. This is the Kabbalistic sphere. And it is above the Archangels of the Zodiac that planet rules. So, for example, the Archangel of Venus is subservient to the Archangel of Netzach, but rules over the Archangels of both Taurus and Libra due to the way that the planetary setup is set up. So Netzach rules over Venus, Venus rules over Taurus and Libra. That's how the hierarchy works, and it's mimicked in the archangels. An important thing to note is that in certain hierarchies, you will find that the angel of the planet is the same as the angel of the sphere. This happens quite a bit. For all intents and purposes, if they're the same angel, just count them as the same angel. For the sake of the hierarchy, it won't really matter because you're not going to call somebody by their other job title. That just doesn't make sense. So we're not going to count that here. So here we have a graphic that is a list from Monad to Kings of Hell. This is a holy to chthonic listing. Now, due to the nature of the world of spirits, it's not a perfect listing, but it's good enough for the purposes of this video and as a beginner instructionary tool. Most people are going to find that this is kind of sort of what the Grimoires are going to be hinting at, when they put things into a hierarchy, so this is the hierarchy we're going to be using. Okay, at the top of the list we have the monad. This is the hermetic all, so to speak. This is, for all intents and purposes, everything in creation all at the same time. You do not evoke the monad. You do not evoke the hermetic all. You invoke them, and you invoke the power of the Most High. You do not evoke the Most High. That's just a big no-no, and if you try it, you are asking for trouble. The reason you don't do that is because imagine literally the entire universe contained within your ritual space. That is what you are asking for when you're trying to evoke this, so you don't do that. There are things that are similar enough to the monad to where you can evoke them, but even then they function very differently, and we will be covering them in a different video. I can think of one off the top of my head, but we're not going to be talking about it in this listing. Okay, going down the list, we have archangels and pagan gods. Starting with archangels. Archangels are said to be the messengers of the Most High. In the Tree of Life, these function in the world of creation, so these are the spirits that are high up on the celestial hierarchy, considered to be one notch below the Most High. You will commonly find these in old Renaissance-style grimoires, as that was what they were trying to work with. They were trying to get closer to God and doing evocations of the archangels in order to know God better. You will also find that if you're familiar with the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, in the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, you're calling Raphael, Michael, Gabriel, and Uriel to the east, south, west, and north, respectively. These are all archangels. And in the version I personally learned, it was called, that section where you call up the archangels is actually known as the evocation of the archangels. And alongside archangels, I've listed pagan gods. I know there's chthonic pagan gods, but pagan gods feel more appropriate here. Pagan gods are anything that are not Jewish, Abrahamic, or Islamic. These are like Zeus, Thor, Odin, Shiva, any god that is in a pagan perspective, Hecate, that kind of thing. These are all pagan gods, and therefore they belong in the pagan gods section. Now, they have a wide variety of differences. They all generally have their own role, and you're going to want to do your own research if you want to evoke these, because some of them are not exactly the nicest to work with if you don't kind of already match their temperament, or if you don't kind of vibe with them, they're not going to like working with you. And this is generally something that would be done in a more devotional context. I'm just listing it here for completionist's sake. Do I recommend doing this? No. That being said, there is a note I want to mention here of there is a practice in the Golden Dawn system known as the Assumption of the God form. This is more of an invocationary practice, and we won't be talking about it in this series. However, I just wanted to make mention of it here for completionist's sake, just so I've dotted all my I's and crossed all my T's. Going down the listing, we have angelic choirs and servants of the gods. Angelic choirs function in the realm of formation. These report to the archangels that we talked about previously, and generally you're not going to be evoking a specific member of the choirs. You are going to have a member of the choir either sent to fulfill the task you're asking for, or advising spirits that are getting put in charge of doing the task for you. Now, servants of the gods are what they sound like. They are servants of the pagan gods, similar to angels, but for the specific pagan gods. Please do your own research into this and find out which spirits work for which gods that you want to work with. And keep in mind that the more you learn about pagan gods that you want to work with, the better of a working relationship you will have with them. This is a main difference in my perspective than a lot of other people's. I don't do things from a devotional perspective. I do things from a work relationship perspective. So you will see that I'm not very devotional to the pagan gods because I'm not that devotional to the pagan gods. I don't really... That's not the kind of work I do. That's not part of my path, and I'm not going to fault anyone for doing it, but it's just not for me. Okay, now we go to the planetary intelligences, spirits, and daemons. Daemon is a term for a kind of a neutral spirit. Planetary spirits are spirits that have the abilities of the planetary powers that they correspond to. So a planetary power of sun would have planetary spirits that can do things related to the sun. You will generally find them in more modern books, I find, because old grimoires were more focused with angels and demons, and they had a very black and white morality of things. You will actually find quite a bit of old grimoires will list spirits under different names as being either gods, angels, saints, what have you, because at some point the Renaissance grimoires and the medieval Catholics and the medieval Christians had a weird change where they believed everything was either an angel, a demon, or physical. Planetary intelligences and daemons both come from Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy. Now, in certain versions, you will find that it says planetary spirits in that. That's actually a mistranslation. I have the new Eric Purdue translation, and apparently that is a mistranslation. So I'm going to be calling them the planetary daemons, which is the translation he uses for this. Now, it is said that the planetary intelligences rule the positive aspects and the positive effects of the planets, and the daemons are in charge of the negative aspects of the planets. I've yet to find an actual coherent list of what these spirits, like what these intelligences and what the daemons can do. If anyone has that list, I'd be very appreciative, but I currently do not have that list, so I can't give it to you. Generally speaking, even though we don't have the full list, we know that the intelligence is the positive one and the daemon is negative. However, the daemon being closer to the Earth, because of the way the hierarchy works out in Agrippa, you would want to use the intelligence to constrain some of the negative hostile behavior of the daemon. So generally speaking, if you read anything where you're evoking both of them, you will see that most commonly. You generally won't see only evoking the daemon or only evoking the intelligence. From what I have seen, that being said, your mileage may vary in the sources you're reading. And below the planetary spirits is the elementals. These are the gnomes, sylphs, undines, and salamanders, which correspond to the elements of earth, air, water, and fire, respectively. Generally, the elemental spirits you're going to be evoking are the elemental kings and the elemental archangels. You won't generally evoke a common everyday elemental because it's similar to evoking a member of the angelic choir. You will, however, commonly be invoking the elements. The elements are commonly invoked, and random elementals will fulfill your tasks. However, you won't commonly be evoking a random earth elemental or random fire elemental. Precautions when working with elementals: always banish when you are done invoking. And if you are going to be working with an elemental king or something to the effect, you're going to send them off when they're done, and they will fulfill your task or give it to their subordinates. And the hierarchy for the elemental spirits, according to the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, is Archangel of the Elements, so the angel you call up during the LBRP. So for air, it would be Raphael, Michael would be fire, Gabriel would be water, and Ariel or Uriel, depending on your version of the LBRP, is going to be earth. Then it's going to be the angel of the element, the elemental king, and then all of the elementals subservient to the elemental king. Keep in mind, these are the most terrestrial entities, and it is said that they are energetically already on the physical plane. So oftentimes elementals can do things faster than angels can, just due to the fact that they're already here and they're already functioning on a pseudo-physical plane. They're not actually physical beings, but they're energetically functioning on the physical plane. It's said that the physical world is the realm of the elements, and this is where all the elementals function. Below the elementals, we have the chthonic and kind of infernal entities. I'm going to be calling them infernal from now on. I said chthonic earlier, but these are demonic forces. These are infernal forces. These are like the bad dudes. These are the demons, and these are some other spirits that we generally don't want to interact with regularly. So, as a heads up, this is your warning. I do not recommend, if you do not know what you're doing, working with any of the listings of entities that I am about to list. That being said, I'm listing them here for completion, because if I didn't at least list some of these, I would feel like I'm doing you a disservice. Okay, starting off at the least infernal of the infernal beings, we have the incomplete beings. These are the unfinished things that live in the 7 Earths that are below Earth. These are kind of unfinished beings that will try to become parasites because their desire is that they want to become whole. You can work with these. I don't recommend it because these are effectively spiritual parasites. But if you bind them and get them to do what you want them to do, more power to you, I guess. But I don't recommend it, and I don't commonly see people working with these, so we're moving on. From here, we have lesser demons. These are the demonic equivalent of the angelic choirs. These are subservient to the greater demons. You generally won't be calling them up directly, and they will generally be sent out by the greater demons to do the tasks you ask of them, and to do whatever they need to get done. Here we have leaders of the armies of hell. These are the goetic demons. These are the big-name demons that you would think of when you crack open the Lesser Key of Solomon, turn to the Goetia. These are those demons. These are the demons who lead the legions of hell, and as such, these are the ones you're going to be calling up most of the time, because these are the ones with the name recognition. They're the ones that are commonly in pop culture and all that. And yeah, so you probably have already heard of them. You've probably, if you know anything about Evocation, have heard of the Goetia. And so you're probably going to be calling on these if you're going to be calling up a demon. That being said, there is one other class of demon I have listed here, which is the Kings of Hell. The Kings of Hell are a little bit special in that in the various Renaissance grimoires, they change through book to book. Some of them are consistent, but by and large, you're going to find that there are very different. Some get swapped out, some get swapped in. There's not really a coherent list in the old grimoires. That being said, these are notable in this hierarchy for being the demons that at the end of the Abramelin ritual, that is the Holy Guardian Angel operation from the sacred book of Abramelin the Mage, these are the demons you get to swear loyalty to you and to bind the demons to your service. You get the Holy Guardian Angel to assist you in this, and you have the Kings of Hell swear fealty to you, which is a form of evocation, but it's not something I'm not going to explain how to do the Abramelin in this series. Again, completionist's sake. Now, that's all the entries on the list. However, I have a few more notes here on things I want to mention that are evocation adjacent, or they're spirit classes that don't really fit into the hierarchy for one reason or another that I will explain. Starting off with the Fae. The Fae is a catch-all term for fairies and anything that is in sort of the fairy courts. There isn't really hard documentation on these entities other than legends and folk tales and rumors like that, at least not that I'm aware of. They seemingly only have one major thing that is coherent, and that is they do not want to get into a deal, but if they do make a deal with you, they take deals very seriously. They often will try to not get into a deal with you and just kind of like, oh yeah, we don't have to make a deal out of it, and I'll just do it. But if you get them to actually make a deal, they never break their word. It is a very serious thing to them. I don't recommend working with the Fae unless you have a tested grimoire that is, fairly old and is actually a fairy grimoire. Those are very rare to my understanding, and the only one that I'm aware of would be the Book of Oberon, but that is not actually a fairy grimoire. That is a Catholic grimoire that has the name Oberon on the front. I'm not sure why. I have never been able to find out. I just find it really funny and wanted to mention that here. The next one is ancestors, and I know this is kind of a weird inclusion because most people, when I say, oh yeah, you can invoke angels and demons, wouldn't normally think of ancestor work, but this is an important inclusion in my opinion, because generally speaking, you can go to ancestors and talk to your family. They are your family, they're non-physical because they have passed on, but family is family, and they generally want to do what's best for their families because, that's what you do. You want to treat your family right, and there is a lot of cultures that have ancestor work, so I felt it was important to include ancestors as being evocation adjacent. You're going to want them around your circle, you're not going to want to bind your family, because that's, again, rude. And you don't really need to protect yourself from family most of the time unless you have some complete asshole relatives, so I figured it was worth a mention here. Now, in a similar but different vein, Necromancy. Necromancy is specifically going to be evoking spirits of the dead who are not your family. There are various forms of necromancy from all over the world that I am not qualified to speak on. However, I will mention a Christian form of necromancy where you evoke the spirit of someone who has died and gone to hell, and you enter into a deal with them where they do a task for you, and you give them a prayer and kind of intercede and ask God to send them up to heaven faster or get them out of purgatory and into heaven. Basically, you're putting in a good word to God because they did a job for you, and you want them to get into heaven and uphold your part of the deal. This is by no means an exhaustive list. This has not been an exhaustive list. There are definitely more things you can call up. However, these are the ones I wanted to talk about and mention for people who are new to the concept of evocation, maybe have been in the occult spaces for quite a bit, and just want to know what you can actually evoke. What's the deal with this evocation thing? Why are people saying why you can just talk to angels? This is the process by which you would do that, and so this is just kind of an introductory into what you would be calling up. Next video on the subject is going to be more of a mechanics-focused video, and we're going to be going through part 3 of the Arbitel of Magic and talking about the Olympic Planetaries, a group of spirits that I have neglected to mention in this video, mostly because they fit in the Planetary Spirits section, and we're just going to move on and we'll talk about them next time. So next video is going to be on that. Hope you enjoyed. I will leave a link to the Arbitel of Magic from the Esoteric Archives in the description of this video below. I will also leave a link to my Twitter if for some god-awful reason you want to follow me on that cursed platform. And yeah, hope you have a wonderful day. Hope your week is wonderful. It's getting to be Christmas time at the time of recording and upload. Hope you have a good Christmas, or whatever holidays we're celebrating. Eo Saturnalia. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Eo Saturnalia, everyone.